Hey everybody, this is Emily from Discover Fort Smith here with the amazing Josh from the city of Fort Smith. And we're here recording in Soul Studios with the owner, Grant Thomas.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much for letting us use this gorgeous space
This is
to record
amazing.
in.
Absolutely.
And thanks for joining us too.
Well, thank you for the invite. I'm honored to be here.
So can you tell us a little bit the story behind how Soul Studios got started?
Absolutely. I've always been around audio and video, multimedia, production most of my life. I was raised in a religious household and very involved in a church environment. So that's where a lot of the passion kind of started for me at a young age. And, one opportunity led to the next. And I operated a much smaller scale studio for 4 or 5 years across the hallway here before we ever expanded over to what we're sitting in now. And, the right things happened. I met the right people, and I'm just blessed to have the opportunity. We opened this studio back in 2019.
What a time.
Yeah.
to start a studio,
I know,
right?
right?
Exactly. So we took 2 years. We completely gutted this space down to the studs, completely redid everything. Because it used to be a studio back in the 90s, early 2000s called Omega Sound. And below us, there used to be a music store called Sigler Music, which was a staple in Fort Smith.
Yeah, I was there frequently.
Yep. So we came in, the skeleton was here, and we gutted it down to the studs. We went through about 2 years of renovations and construction. It took us 4 contractors to finish this job. The attention to detail was just very high. It took us a minute to find a good fit, and then we opened at the end of 2019, and 3 months after we opened, COVID hit.
Gosh,
So
I cannot imagine.
it was beautiful timing on our part, but no, it was great. We stayed very busy those first couple of years. Definitely had to be creative, but we wanted to create a space that didn't really feel like Fort Smith. Most people walk in here and they feel like they've walked into a new world. We're big believers that your environment directly affects your ability to create. And so we wanted to create a special place, that was inviting and comfortable for people to spend a lot of time in here, because at the end of the day, studio work is a lot of hours, there's no windows in here. So it's very easy to lose track of time. It's kind of like a casino in some ways.
Yeah.
And, but it's a great place to work, and we're happy to have just celebrated 5 years as of
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
We were talking before we started recording just about, you can tell that there's so much intention and thought went into how you set up the space, from how it smells when you walk in the door to like the visual elements that you have on the wall to the lighting, etc. It's the work you put into the design here is evident,
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
I appreciate the kind words. Most of the things that you see in this space, the tapestries on the walls, the saris hanging from the ceilings, the light fixtures, the little stool that your drinks are sitting on, we've imported stuff from all over the world: Turkey, Morocco, India, Portugal. The list goes on, and it's very authentic. These are things that once again we just wanted to give it a unique feel. Before we opened the studio, we took a trip to Nashville, and we had set up 5 or 6 meetings with different studio owners and managers. There's not really a playbook in Fort Smith. Fort Smith is not really known for music. We had the ability to kind of do what we wanted to here, but we wanted to also put in the proper due diligence to see how it was done in Music City. And we met with a bunch of different studio owners, and one of the things that we felt lacked in most of those studios was just the vibe, the feeling. They were very corporate feeling studios. They had amazing equipment, but we wanted to take it to the next level and not only have from the technical aspect, this is nothing short of what you'd find in Nashville. It's a fully analog studio, but we wanted to take it a step further and create a special place. We've had many artists over the years come in here from different parts of the U.S., and we don't take it lightly when they tell us how cool of a space this is, and how, in some cases it's the coolest studio they've ever been to.
Yeah.
So
What made you want to start a studio? Because you said you had experience with music and you had experience with production and those types of things. But what made you say, now's the time I want to start a studio in Fort Smith, Arkansas?
Yeah, well, I'm born and raised in Fort Smith. I'm a hometown boy, and as a musician first, I think all musicians probably have a dream of being able to record themselves and work with other people, record other people. So I think over time, the more I played and I used to gig around with several different artists, it just kind of made sense to, there was a need for it in Fort Smith. There's not, there are a few studios, but definitely nothing really on this level. And we didn't want to take any shortcuts, and we felt like there was a need and a demand for having a world-class facility here. And, our goal has always been to attract people in to Fort Smith. We want this to be viewed as kind of like a destination studio. You come here to get away from the big city. You come here to get away from the distractions. You come to the natural state, get out and enjoy nature. We wanted this to be like a retreat for artists, and we love working with local people, but our goal has always been to attract people from out of the state, industry level clients to come in and work here. And so at the end of the day, the type of work we do, we tell stories, and both visually and audibly, being able to capture these stories. Recording is a very vulnerable state to be in. So we don't take it lightly to be trusted with people's babies, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So,
That's awesome. So who are some of the people that you've attracted here to Fort Smith so far?
Yeah, I mean, we work with a wide range of musicians. We've worked with Emmy-nominated artists, Grammy-nominated artists. We have a great partnership with Peacemaker, where we have a program called the Emerging Artist of the Year. So each year we name an emerging artist on the bill at Peacemaker, and we bring them into the studio and we do a full project for them. We do all kinds of media for them, but it's a way to essentially give them whatever they need to take them to the next step in their career.
Yeah.
They own the rights to everything. It's not something that we're charging them for.
That's cool.
And I think it's just a great representation of Fort Smith and how giving and caring people are. People can come together and give other people opportunities. But to answer your question, I mean, we work with a lot of country artists, just because of the geographical location here. We work with a lot of red dirt country, southern rock. Through the Peacemaker partnership, we've gotten the chance to work with some amazing artists. The first year we did it with a gentleman named Tanner Ussery.
Oh yeah, I know Tanner Ussery. Yeah.
Tanner's gone on to sign some amazing record deals and work with some amazing artists. And I'd like to think that hopefully we played a small part in that whenever we did the project with him before he really kind of shot up in terms of his career. And we've worked with a gentleman named Joe Stam. He's from Illinois, I believe. We worked with Taylor Honeycutt. She's from Alabama. She's a powerhouse. That was an amazing project. So we do stuff all over the board. It's not always just audio or music related. Sometimes we're recording voiceovers. Sometimes we're recording audiobooks. That's actually one of the things that we kind of capitalized on during the pandemic. We did a lot of audiobook recordings. So there was a young lady who is from the area, right over the border in Oklahoma, who is very well known kind of in the market of audiobooks and indigenous audiobooks because of her ties to some of the nations, in Oklahoma. And she had moved back home because of the pandemic, living in LA, moved back home. And so several of the publishing companies that she worked with found us because we were a local studio, and we did a lot of audiobooks over 2020, 2021. So it's not always the glorious, band recordings and trackings. Sometimes we're doing stuff that's kind of off the wall, audiobooks, voiceovers. We do a lot of film compositions. A local composer named Amos Cochran, who's a very, very talented composer, Emmy-nominated composer. We've done some awesome projects with him.
Nice.
Film scoring. We work with the symphony. We work with local schools. We've hosted jazz camps with Northside and Southside, CSA. We've done stuff with the choir. So really, we're all over the board.
I love that.
Yeah, that's really
I
great.
love that it's community minded
Yeah.
too. It's not just we're getting people in here recording. We're actually affecting and helping the community in a lot of ways too. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I have a nerdy audiobook question for you.
Okay, let's hear it.
So whenever I listen to audiobooks, sometimes I go down rabbit trails.
No, let's hear this.
So whenever I listen to audiobooks, I always think they're speaking so slowly and they articulate so well. Is this slowed down in post-production, or is this the actual speed that they speak at while reading this book in the moment?
That's a good question. I feel like all of the audiobooks we've gotten the opportunity to work on, I don't know if I've ever felt like they were speaking slowly. So maybe that was
Okay.
Do
just...
you think, Josh?
Well, I mean, I think I speak slowly.
But
So
I could see the need for it. You know,
Yeah.
If you're a fast talker and you're not really giving the words proper spacing,
Yeah.
I could definitely see how maybe they would slow it down, but I could also see how that could introduce some weird audio artifacts.
Yeah.
Because of the warping and whatnot. So
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll have to try that sometime.
You know, because I feel like some of them are designed to be at like 1.2 speed
Yeah.
or something. Whatever.
You're like, you
Yeah.
have to speed
I'm
this
like,
up.
come
Jordan.
on.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, that was
No,
just
man,
way
that's-
off track.
that's a good
But
question.
I had. But I did notice whenever I was in there, I'm kind of an audio nerd. You have a lot of analog equipment, and we're in a very digital age as far as audio recording, musician recording, stuff like that. Is that kind of what sets you apart, you feel like, as far as
Absolutely. I think the analog nature of the studio, which we still have a lot of electronic equipment
Right.
as well,
Yeah.
but we wanted to kind of create a hybrid studio. You know, it's a fully analog studio, fully analog console, all kinds of analog outboard equipment. But I think it's important to kind of walk that line, depending on what the expectations and the goals are of each project. There may be different needs for different equipment, but the analog equipment, the tubes, I mean, there really is. They make electronic emulations of all these things, but
Right.
it's very tough to compare it to the real deal. And it's the same thing with instruments. You know, upright pianos and Fender Rhodes, Hammond B3 organs. There's electronic patches that exist for all of these things, and sometimes when you don't have the time or the budget and you need to do something quick, there's a need for those things. But the real deal, we're usually always going to lean towards that, and I do think that's kind of what sets us apart.
yeah.
I totally agree with you. The sound is just, there's nothing like it. You can't digitize that sound exactly, that you get from the analog stuff.
I feel like this environment is warm and like the analog sounds kind of warm.
Oh,
It
yeah.
all complements each other. It
Yeah.
all works together. You know?
Well, and Emily has made a couple comments about the attention to detail in here,
Yeah.
and this is kind of corny and cliche, so I apologize, but
I live in corny
Yeah, I know. It's
cliche.
like, Daniel, have you met us? Have you met us?
we hope that the attention to detail that you see within the space is a reflection of how we treat people's work. Anton, our head engineer, he's a Berkeley graduate, and there's not much that gets past him. He is very passionate about his work, and we're blessed to have him here as an asset to the studio. He helped us build the entire studio. All the cables you see on the wall behind me, we've ran miles of cables. We've built all kinds of cable. Couldn't have done this without him. But absolutely, the vibe is very warm. Very colorful, very inviting. Some people it may be too busy, but we don't get that too often. So
Yeah, those people can get out.
Well, I wanted to ask about events, because sometimes you guys host events here,
Yes.
right? I mean, that's actually how I got introduced to Soul Studios originally, was I think Brandon Goldsmith with the film festival was hosting some type of like a
film
forum. Yeah.
Yeah, so occasionally we do events up here. That's actually something that I'm really wanting to try and host more events in the future. I think it's an opportunity that we're missing out on. It's such a cool space, but sometimes our events, our filmmaker forums, we do an event with Peacemaker, which is very unique, where we take 2 to 3 of the artists either that we've worked with through the Emerging Artist Program, or sometimes they're just on the bill, and we'll do an acoustic performance up here, and we do a drawing of the ticket holders. And so last year we packed in probably close to 60 people in here.
That's great.
We bring a bunch of chairs in the live room. We have acoustic performances. They're very intimate. You can be up close and personal with the artists. We had a bunch of people in the control room, with the video being displayed in there. So we love hosting events up here. Occasionally, companies will do Christmas parties up here, or we'll throw up a mic in the booth and put auto tune on it and just let them have a karaoke night up here.
Oh, that's fun.
We
I love karaoke.
Yeah. It's dangerous. It's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
Fun. But we love doing events up here, and definitely want to get more into that. Maybe start hosting a more frequent, open to the public event where we might have a small jazz trio up here playing, or whatever it may be. We just want to expose people to the studio more. Yeah. It's a special place, and it's kind of a hidden gem. We don't have signage anywhere, so it's fun to have people in here.
Yeah, you kind of almost feel like it's got a speakeasy vibe.
Yeah,
like you come in and you walk up the stairs and you go down the hallway, and then I like it.
Well, and you come, the hallway is very sterile and bland, and then you walk into this space, and it's like night and day.
Yeah.
So.
Can you talk to us a little bit about the components of the space? Because right now we're in kind of the main studio area, right?
Yep.
But you have additional spaces.
Yeah. So right now we're sitting in what we call the live room or the tracking room. So typically when we have clients in the room, this is going to be where your band is set up. Sometimes, this room can be set up a million different ways. Sometimes we have the drums out in the live room whenever artists kind of want a more responsive, bigger sound from the drums. And then sometimes we'll isolate drums in one of the 2 isolation booths that we have here. It really depends on what the goals are for the session, but this is the live room. To my left, we have the control room. So that's where the engineer and the producer and any extras would typically be. It's where the console and all the equipment is. It's where our monitors are. Very, very nice, high quality speakers. So Anton can be monitoring at the highest level possible. You'd be surprised how much math went into creating the most perfect listening position in there.
Yeah.
We can get into that later, but
he walked me through it. He allowed me to listen to some music in there, and he was like, "No, you need to sit back just right about here." And I was like, "Okay."
Yeah.
I mean, it was amazing. It was immersive. I mean, you felt like it was all around you at that moment.
You can imagine an equilateral triangle between the 2 monitors and then the listener. That creates the ideal listening position. And then we have it isolated with the cloud and all kinds of acoustics that you can't even see in there. That makes it a very optimal listening space. But
That's cool.
We have the live room, the 2 isolation booths, the control room. Across the hall, we have our green room / lounge. It's kind of a multi-purpose space. Sometimes it works as overflow when we have events. Sometimes people, we cater in food over there and kind of get out of the studio for a little bit. Sometimes people might be playing Mario Kart over there, watching Netflix. We keep all of our drums stored in the lounge as well. Connected to the lounge, we have a photo studio. So we do product photography, portraits, headshots, band photos.
Oh, nice.
Kind of idea is be a one-stop shop. And then we have one other production suite that we book, just smaller productions, vocal productions, hip-hop sessions. So we have several spaces that can be used in many different ways. And then we have a number of little storage spaces up here as well. So
that's cool. When you're recording somebody, what are the hours like? What would a day look like?
Oh man!
Because I imagine you've got a deadline, you've got this much time allotted, or these many dates. Or do you just live here?
Basically, I mean, for the most part, in a perfect world, we would love to operate on a normal schedule, but very rarely does that happen. Especially when we have artists that are here for multiple, consecutive days. A lot of times, the way it looks on the day of the session is, we might have a call at 8, 9 a.m. People show up. We'll load in. We'll get everything set up if it's not already set up. We'll maybe try to start recording by 9 or 10. Sometimes we do lunch breaks. Sometimes we cater lunch in. But oftentimes we're here we're burning the midnight oil. It's safe to say. I mean, we've been in here overnight before. We've been in here till 2, 3 a.m. oftentimes. Anton and I have crashed on the couch here before. You know, it's long hours. And the thing is, it's kind of walking that line and that balance of, you know, when the vibes are good and the creativity is flowing, you don't ever want to stop that. And a lot of these artists are used to, if you think about when they perform, it's later in the evening, you know. So sometimes for a vocalist, starting vocals at 9 a.m. is not going to be, he or she's not going to give their best performance, you know. Right. So that kind of plays into it as well. But yes, we keep very late hours. Technically, a day rate gets you about 10 hours, but oftentimes we're putting in 12, 14, 16-hour days when you factor in setup time and, you know, lunch breaks and this and that. So it's it gets, we definitely put in some time.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Can you, for people who don't know, like, the production side of music, or just, I guess, anything. Can you walk us through the steps of like what you guys do, and then how do we get from point A to the end product, point Z?
So a lot of times the way things start, we'll have a client reach out to us and they may have a demo put together, which is just kind of a rough idea, a rough track. There's not been much production. Sometimes it can literally just be a voice and a guitar or a voice and piano. And so that's kind of where we start the pre-production phase. You know, we'll start working with this demo that they've sent us and start adding in production elements, ideas that we hear. And this is also if the artist wants us to kind of act as in the producer role. And so we kind of start building on that demo till we get to a fleshed out track, you know, where we've added drum ideas, and maybe at the beginning we're just programming things electronically. We're not actually going through the trouble of recording because, once again, these are just ideas. You know, it may not be like a set arrangement per se, but once we have that arrangement dialed in the way we want it to, we kind of have an idea on what instruments need to be added, and that's kind of the phase where we start to bring the clients in the room and we try to do a tracking. And so sometimes it's better to piecemeal things together, you know, meaning we might track each instrument at a time. But we're big believers that, especially for artists that are newer to the studio, things tend to take a little longer in the studio just because you're not used to hearing yourself in such clear detail. You know, maybe you're used to rehearsing in the garage and everything's kind of bleeding together. Everything in the studio is under a magnifying glass. And so a lot of artists who haven't spent much time in the studio may not be used to that workflow. And but basically we'll sometimes piecemeal things together and take things instrument at a time. And sometimes we'll encourage people to track the way they rehearse. So if they're used to playing as a group, playing live as a group, I think it's best to record as a group. And even if we don't keep all aspects of the performance, what we like to call is basics tracking. So when people track as a full band, usually our number one priority and what we're trying to get out of that is the foundation of the rhythm section. So like your bass and your drums. We want to be sure that those are locked in and good to go. And then we might come back to start what we call an overdub. So guitar solos, piano solos, layering guitars, you know, background vocals, these are all overdubs. Yeah. So that's where you really start to kind of embellish the track, and it starts to take new shape, you know, it starts to get larger. You start to get more of a stereo feel with panning things. And that's kind of the fun part of the session is the overdub part, because essentially that's where the ear candy kind of starts to come in, and it starts to sound less like a demo and more like a fully produced track. And so once we've got the initial recordings done, it kind of moves to the post-production side of things where the mixing will start. And so mixing is just polishing things, leveling things, adding compression, adding EQ, adding effects, reverb, so many different things you can do in the mix phase. And then past that would be kind of the mastering phase. So mastering is going to be what helps the piece of music translate across all devices, where this music is going to sound good coming from your phone speaker. It's going to sound good coming out of your car speakers. It's going to sound good coming through a massive PA system. That's kind of what mastering does. And so most of the stuff we do in-house is tracking and mixing. Mastering is kind of a specialty service. And, typically, especially if we've been a part of the tracking and the mixing, we always encourage artists it needs to meet a new set of ears. A mastering engineer is going to kind of have a different perspective on it than we would. And also mastering engineers that's usually all they do. They don't usually track and mix. It's a very specialty service. So mastering is about the only thing we don't really do in-house. We can kind of do like an amateur master, where it's more of a loudness master, where we're bringing the levels up. But mastering is much more than just adding volume and stuff. So, I don't know if that answers your question.
No,
that kind of
Yeah.
takes you through the.
It sounds super
process.
meticulous.
It is. It is
the attention to detail and.
Yeah, it's it takes time and patience. Most good things do, but it's taking something from the demo all the way to the master. I mean, sometimes can take years for some artists, and especially when the artist is more involved or more well known, and they might have more of an opinion on things, or they may have certain people they'd like to work with that have a lot of clout, who have other projects on their plates. Maybe the piece of music isn't being worked on for 2 years straight, but sometimes the process can take that long, and then sometimes it can be as quick as a quick turnaround. It just really all comes down to the client and the goal and the expectation. Yeah. But
is there ever any like butting heads there, like between what they want it to sound like and what you're like, no, but it needs a little this,
There definitely can be, but we try not to bring any. When we come through the door of the studio, we try not to bring our ego in. At the end of the day, we're in the service industry. We're here to make our clients happy, and so. Obviously, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, and at the end of the day, I want people to leave the space happy, and that's the other part of the studio world is studio etiquette. Knowing when to make your opinion, share your opinion, and knowing when to keep your mouth closed. But we definitely don't have an ego in this. We want people to have a great experience with us. Yeah. Even if we may not agree with it. But no, I wouldn't say we've had any negative things happen. But there definitely can be the butting of heads, and sometimes that's healthy. Right. At the end of the day, you want what's best out of that piece of music, and so
that's cool.
And seeing a different perspective sometimes is helpful. Yeah. You may not have thought about it that way, but
But you do more than just music. You do videography as well. And I know this because you've done some documentary work with our sister city, Cisterna. And so I've just loved to hear, what are some things that you've done film-wise as well?
Absolutely. So I've been blessed with several opportunities over the last few years to work with the city on a series of documentaries. Mayor McGill and I are very, very close. He's a great friend of mine, and I can't thank him enough for giving me these opportunities. But let's see, the first one I did, well, let me back up. We do more than just documentary work. Okay. Documentaries are actually pretty new to me within the last 5 years or so. Most of the video work I do is commercial work for businesses and organizations and photo work. I used to manage Bedford Cameron Video in Fort Smith before it closed down. I left in 2019 when we opened this place, and I think they shut the doors at Bedford's in 2020 or 2021.
I miss that place.
It was a great
really
great employer. Got a lot of respect for, that's kind of where I cut my teeth in a lot of ways. I was hustling between managing Bedford's and working in the kind of the smaller scale studio I had. that was the early days of Soul Studios, really. But so I really got into the video world, which is really more of my specialty. Long ago, doing work for churches, and that grew to different businesses and organizations. And then in 2020, Mayor McGill approached me about doing a project over the Black history in Fort Smith.
Yeah.
And so my first documentary I was able to work on is called The Fabric of Fort Smith. It's a very important documentary. It's important to understand really the founding of Fort Smith goes back to African Americans. You look at Bass Reeves as well, U.S. Marshal. We just have a lot of rich history, and some of it's not all great history like most places, but I think it's important to understand all of the history that your city represents. But the Fabric of Fort Smith was awesome.
Where can this be found? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's a good question. I don't know if the city has it posted or
the city has it posted on our YouTube channel, so you can find it there.
Great. Okay.
It was on Mayor McGill's webpage. Some of that's recently shifted around, but it is on our city YouTube page.
Okay,
Awesome.
Cool.
So yeah, the Fabric of Fort Smith was a great learning experience for me. Even I was born and raised here, and that's the more I work on these documentaries, it's a great learning opportunity, to kind of immerse yourself into these subjects and stories that you don't know much about, and it's kind of a journey for me as well. But the Fabric of Fort Smith was awesome. We then did a project called Fort Smith Proud.
Yeah,
that was last year's project. That one covers a lot of the culture and the diversity here in Fort Smith,
and that premiered at the film festival. Correct?
It did. Yeah. Yes, sir. Covers some of the military background and the roots here in Fort Smith, Chaffee and the Air National Guard Base. Nice. And then just some of the exciting things on the horizon, and then most recently I've done a documentary called In the Footsteps of Darby, A General's Journey. And that project, is very special to me. I think it's obviously a Fort Smith story, but it's much larger than Fort Smith. It tells the story of General Darby, who's a hometown hero who went on to liberate the city of Cisterna and ultimately the country of Italy. And it's important to know that those folks came from here and the impact that they've had on people around the world globally. And so that was a very cool project to work on. I actually got to go with the city, the delegation last October for the 40th year anniversary of the twinning. I got to go and document our entire trip there, and to be there. I always grew up in Fort Smith, seeing the town, the signs around town of the sister city signs, and never fully understood the depth and the history there. But to go to Italy and to see what General Darby and the sacrifice of the Rangers means to them, and not just the elders, but the young generation as well. I mean, this is a well-known. It was life-changing, and I don't mean to sound cliche, but to be able to go over there and walk the battlegrounds and see the remnants of the destruction and what the Allies had to come in and do. I mean, it was powerful. It was very profound. And, they took us down in the caves below the city where they had reenactments going on of what the days of World War II would have looked like down there when they were fleeing from the Nazis. It was just all very powerful. And to be able to go there and essentially touch it, it's different than, and I love the statue we have here. I love the school, but it's that's obviously the closest we can get to those things. But to be there and to see what it means to those people, it was awesome. Yeah. So that project just premiered a couple weeks ago, and we are in the process of making that public. Hopefully, I don't know when exactly it'll be public, but it is going to premiere again at the Fort Smith Film Festival, which is in August.
Yeah. Beginning of August.
It's going to hopefully premiere at the Cisterna Film Festival. I've got to get a bunch of Italian subtitles added, which is going to be quite the project. But And then we're in some other talks with local school systems and some statewide organizations, that we're hopeful. It's an important story, and it's a cool story. So we're excited to see what happens with that one.
Yeah.
That's
And for those who don't know, Darby was not, he was a Fort Smith native, obviously. That's why we celebrate him so much here. But he is the founder of what would today be called the Army Rangers.
Yep.
So they were Darby's Rangers. Now they're the Army Rangers. And he was the one who started that whole, those soldiers going in and doing that. I think he modeled them after the British Commandos. And just huge. Just what he did for our modern military, how it shifted and shaped what modern military looks like is incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Rangers are what we know today as the Special Forces, you know, and they brought him back in 1974, and he's the godfather of the Ranger community, and to see what he means, it's the Ranger community. It's like their duty, It's just they want to preserve that legacy of General Darby and continue the good work.
And they have like a 40-mile run over there in Italy at Nago Torbole. I'm probably butchering that. I hope the Italians that are watching right now are not like, good Lord, get this guy out there. But they do a 40-mile run, and it's for military service members, and they ruck the entire run, is my understanding. 40 miles. It's
Insane.
astounding.
In a day,
in a day. Yeah.
And there's a lot of pride here.
Yeah.
Of course, we have the General Darby Challenge.
That recently started,
here, and the Museum of History has a really great exhibit over there. And that's where the movie or the film first premiered, right? Was over at the Museum of History? Or?
We actually did it at the Darby Middle School.
Oh, okay.
Just in honor of, being named after Darby. Yeah, it was kind of an ironic thing.
Neat.
But it was originally supposed to premiere at the museum, but we wanted to try and premiere it in a bigger space, open it up to the public, because originally we were just going to be premiering it for like the sponsor dinner of the Darby Challenge this year, but we went ahead and made it a public event, and we did it in none other than the Darby Middle School, and it's pretty cool to see. Darby's name is not just a name; it's an action. Rangers lead the way. They use a lot of Darby's sayings to motivate the students there, and we're hoping to be able to work it into a classroom setting, and so those students can understand the legacy of that school.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, I kind of want to ask a little bit about, since you're born and bred from Fort Smith, to
you
kind of
are
go,
a Fort Smithian.
You're a Fort Smithian, yes. To kind of go a different direction, what was it like to grow up here? Did you move away and come back, or have you always been here? And kind of how has it changed and shifted over time?
I've always been here. Now, I did go to high school in Greenwood just because of the
we'll edit that part out.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, I'm a bulldog, baby. The subdivision we moved to when I was in, I think, 6th or 7th grade, and happened to be in Greenwood School District. So I went to Greenwood High School and graduated from there. But yeah, I've lived in Fort Smith my whole life. I never really moved away and came back. I've always been here, and I've got a lot of pride for being from Fort Smith. I think there's a lot of positives that come with being in Fort Smith. I think the opportunity level here is very high. It's a big town, but it's a small town mindset, and it's easy to get connected, easy to get involved here. Whereas there's a lot more competition, and people are a lot less approachable in some of our neighboring regions and towns. And so I've definitely, especially since we've opened this business, and I've been more involved in downtown since, I guess, 2016, 2017 is when I originally kind of started making my way downtown and working down here. Certainly have noticed things change a lot, for the better. And I think that what's on the horizon for Fort Smith is very exciting. I think the next 5 to 10 years is just going to continue to kind of create our own path and be a great destination for not only residents but tourists. I mean, there's so much history here, like we were talking about earlier. What is it, 6 or 7 museums probably within a mile of us right now?
So much.
There's just there's so much to learn and to understand, and I think it's a great place to live, great place to work.
So what do you think sets Fort Smith apart? Like if you had musicians who were kind of considering different destinations to make their record, to visit, et cetera, like what sets Fort Smith apart as a place to come to record your album? Or
Yeah, I mean, I think for one, I think the people in Fort Smith are pretty special. I think that's a pretty common theme. Many people think that, and there's a lot of compassion here, a lot of Southern hospitality here, and that's really one of the things that we tried to embed within our business model. We try and go above and beyond for our clients. We like to cater to them, and we really like to, give them that Southern hospitality.
Yeah.
And but I would say, kind of going back to what I was saying earlier, there's not a lot of distractions in Fort Smith. Now, there are some bars that are open till 5 a.m., so we've had a couple clients take advantage of that before, but there's not a whole lot of distractions here, and it's a vibrant community. The downtown strip is a unique area, and one of the cool stories that came out of one of the Peacemaker artist that we work with, Joe Stam, he loved Fort Smith so much, and the people here, and just the experience he had here. He chose to name the album that we did with him Fort Smith, and he also
That's cool.
We worked with Caroline Spear at the museum.
Yeah.
The album cover art is a old picture of Fort Smith. We created a lyric video for Joe for one of the songs we recorded, and we worked with Lynn Wasson.
Oh, yeah.
Joe, and they gave us access to some old footage from like the 70s of people just driving around Fort Smith.
Yeah.
That we used for the footage. But long story short, Joe fell in love with the city. He fell in love with the people. And the stories here, Joe's a runner. So each morning before the sessions, he would go run along the riverfront and visit the National Historic Site down there and just immerse himself within the history. And he grew to it impacted him so much so that he decided to name the record after us. And
that's cool.
We've got a vinyl he signed for us and everything so it's a cool story. But yeah, I mean, I think to answer your question, just it's nice to be in the natural state as well. You're not too far from being outdoors and being able to get some fresh air.
Yeah.
And that's important, especially when you're spending 12, 14, 16 hours in here, being able to kind of disassociate and get out and breathe in some fresh air. And I think we have some amazing cuisine, in Fort Smith. I think, we try to take, anytime we have clients here, we try to take them to all of our favorite spots.
Let's hear 'em.
Where? Yeah. Give us the goods.
Well, I'm probably not going to drop anything new on you, but we love Thai curry right here on Garrison.
Yeah.
It is amazing. We love AJ's. Let's see. Papa's Pizza. I think it's a staple. I mean, it's hard to beat Papa's Pizza. We love Las Americas. Mercedes Lopez has an amazing story. She's one of the ones that we actually got to interview for the Fort Smith Proud project.
Yes.
And her story is just, I love Mercedes. She knows my whole family. That's how much we go there.
That's awesome.
She knows us all by name. But what else? Italianos. We'll cater in Italianos. I know I'm forgetting some, but we try to give them all the Fort Smith staples and really show them what type of cuisine we have here. So
Nice.
When we first moved here, when my husband and I moved like a couple of years ago, we were kind of blown away at, it is for Arkansas, we're like the 4th largest city now. I think Fayetteville beat us out for number 3.
Did they? I didn't know
think
that.
so. So I think we're number 4, but it's still like a smaller city.
Right.
But for the number of people we have, I mean, the amount of global cuisine that we have is pretty incredible.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like the ratio of museums to people and global cuisine to people.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty impressive.
Oh, yeah. Another couple, green papaya. Love green
Oh,
papaya.
yeah.
You know, I've not been there, but I
You
keep
should check it
you
hearing
need to go check
about
it out.
it.
There's
Diamond
two.
Head is also kind of a
I haven't been there.
Oh, no.
gem over
It's-
on-
What is that? Tell me.
It's like Vietnamese. Is he
Yeah,
Vietnamese?
yeah. So
Yeah.
Tan
Tan.
Dai he's a refugee that moved here back in the 70s. And
He's a funny guy.
yeah,
He's hilarious.
He likes to joke with you.
Yeah.
And what's the place called? Diamond Head?
Diamond Head number 2.
Now
actually.
but who knows where number 1 is?
Now I want to know. I'm gonna be like Tim. Tell us.
Yeah, he's a character,
Okay.
but it's a hole in the wall. You wouldn't think much if you drive up. You're like, I don't know. The food is phenomenal.
Incredible.
Yes.
Yep. And a lot of his plates he's named after different people in the community.
Oh, really?
That either he has a funny story about or that helped him somewhere along the way. But
Yeah.
Tan is he's another one that's got an amazing story. You could sit down with him and while you're eating there sometime. And that's what he does. He makes his rounds. He's got a bunch of regulars that come in and he likes to yank people's chains and give them a hard time while they're in there.
Where's it located?
It's on Midland.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I feel like we have several places like that where you drive up and you're like, but then you go in and it's like this
So good.
amazing
Yep.
local hidden gem that's just like Miss Anna's, I think, on Towson.
Oh yeah, Benson's. We've definitely.
Benson.
Yeah,
That's a great
Benson's.
that's a great option for late night sessions. You know,
Yeah.
because they're open 24 hours.
Yeah.
Nothing
Yeah.
like a good old greasy diner. You know.
Yeah,
Right?
that little
and
the
you can
gas
get breakfast,
station,
lunch, dinner. Like
Pho Vietnam. That's right
yeah,
there.
That's
Oh,
another.
yeah.
That's just
Classic.
him and his wife,
Yep.
and same thing. It's
That
just
place-
phenomenal.
It looks cool. It reminds me of Austin. Like when
Yeah.
I drive by, because they have these little restaurants down there that used to be like gas stations and things that they converted. And I'm like, that place is
Yeah,
cool.
it was one of my first places to eat in Fort Smith whenever we were considering moving here the first time in 2011.
Yeah.
And so I was sold after I ate the pho Vietnam. I was like, this
love
is it.
pho.
I'm here.
What did you try the first time you went there?
Oh gosh, I should remember. I know it was a bowl of pho, but I don't know which one because there's like 30. You know?
Their sandwiches. Their
Yes.
those are amazing.
The sandwiches are amazing.
Banh mi?
I used to eat
Yeah.
banh mi. Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to eat there frequently. So
And the coffee. Have you had the?
Oh yeah, it'll get you going.
Yeah, I
you
will. All that
Sure
condensed
will.
milk, you know.
Yeah.
So good. Yeah, we have a lot of Vietnamese restaurants here, and like associated with our history.
Yeah.
with the Vietnamese refugees. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, thanks for the tips.
yeah.
That's great.
Absolutely. Yeah. For anyone listening, please check them out and tell them we sent you. So
Cool.
So if somebody's interested in recording here, how would they figure out how to get in touch with you all or how to start recording here at Soul Studios?
yeah, so we have a website, solstudios.com. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on all the social media platforms. You can find me on all those platforms as well, Grant Thomas. I'm a easy guy to talk to, an approachable guy. So if you ever see me down the street and you want to ask me questions about the studio, don't hesitate. But I would say probably our website. We have like a contact form on there where people can kind of give us a little more information about what type of project they have. That kind of helps prepare us for the conversation better. But you can send me an email, grant@soulstudios.com, and that's SOL Studios. That's probably the best way.
Nice. I do have one more question. So what are you excited about for the future of Fort Smith? We've talked about where we've been and things that you've worked on in the past, but what about the future? What excites you?
I'm really excited to see the continued development of the riverfront. I think the riverfront is such a great amenity to the city. You look at what's already there between the amphitheater and the Marshall's Museum, the skate park, ICA, I guess the potential of the Children's Museum. I'm very excited to see the riverfront continue to develop. I'm excited to see Chaffee. Everything's kind of growing that way as well with the medical school and the Heritage District out there. And the new military sales program. I think that's going to really change the scope of Fort Smith.
Yes.
Bringing in, it's already a very culturally diverse place. I think that's only going to make it more vibrant and, maybe even bring more more food and more shops. Who knows? But I think Chaffee is going to be, it's going to be a great, it already is great, but I think the continued development and growth out at Chaffee is going to really reshape, Fort Smith. And the downtown area obviously is things have been awesome the last 5, 6, 7 years, just new things every year. I can't wait to see what else happens on the riverfront, hopefully more festivals. I think that Riverfront Park there is just a amazing location. If you can time it right with the weather, it gets a little humid and hot down there in the summer, but I'd love to see, more festivals, more concerts down there. So yeah, I think there's a lot to be excited for in the future of Fort Smith. But I can't wait to see it unfold.
Yeah. Well, thank you again for hanging out with us. This has been a super fun time.
Yeah,
it's been really cool getting to know more about the work that you guys do here. And thank you so much.
I can't thank you guys enough for asking me to be a part of this, and also to film several other interviews in the studio. This is the type of stuff we like to do. Show the space off. And thanks again for having me.
Thank you.